Hello everyone, and today we're going to take a look at Uncharted 4 on the PC, the laptop, and the Steam Deck. So we're starting out here with the PC, and the PC in question, we've got an RTX 3080 Ti. I have a Intel Core i7 12700 KF, and we've got 32 gigs of DDR4 RAM at 3600 megahertz. And as you can see, Uncharted is not really a problem for the RTX 3080 Ti. We are running 1440p here and max settings. There's no ray tracing or anything like that. We did let the shaders compile before we started. You should always do that, the shader compilation. It just prevents stuttering. We're seeing that with a lot of modern DX12 games. I'm trying to shoot this sniper with a pistol. That's not a good idea. But as you can see, frame rate is pretty excellent. We're just doing this section in Madagascar. Here we've got a machine pistol here. And yeah, it plays really well. Again, this was a game from, 2016? But again, it's not like Spider-Man, where it has an open world and ray tracing. Spider-Man has. This doesn't have any of them, so this is just normal rasterization. It is a DX12 game. It does do the shader compilation, like we said, before you start. I would always recommend letting that run. It just prevents the game from stuttering. And yeah, there's not a lot really to say about the PC. I did show this in my GTX 1070 video, and the frame rate was pretty good there. I did show drops, especially when we were in the auction house, or we're doing the auction heist, should we say, for the cross that we were trying to steal. That's pretty tough, that, because it's got, quite a lot, especially the character's hair. Nadine, her hair is pretty nicely detailed in this game. All the characters models are really nicely detailed. So this is just ultra settings, 1440p, the enhanced character models, which was introduced in the PS5 version. But as you can see, the frame rate is nice. We're getting 170 odd FPS. It can dip down below 120 FPS. I would recommend DLSS if you don't have a VRR display, like if you have a 120 Hz display and you want to get 120 FPS locked, then DLSS I would recommend. But other than that, you can just kind of leave the frame rate if you've got a VRR display, and it runs fine. This is a G-Sync compatible display that I'm running here, so I don't really have any issues with letting the frame rate run. It's in the 200s here. There's not a lot going on here. So we showed you a bit of driving, bit of platforming, a bit of shooting, and yeah, so the PC is kind of always kind of boring, really, because it runs fairly well. And it's a reasonable port, and we'll see it running on lower end systems. So we've got the high, medium, and low, really. The medium being the laptop, which we'll show you next. Okay, so moving on to the laptop then. So this is a RTX 3060. It is a Lenovo Legion 5, in case you're wondering. It's got, again, an RTX 3060, and it's got a Ryzen 7 5800H for the CPU. It has 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM running at 3200 megahertz. It has 6 gigs of VRAM. We should point out the 3060 laptop version. The desktop one has 12 gigs. GDDR6 memory, so no GDDR6X like the 3080 Ti. But here it runs pretty well, actually. This is 1080p and high settings. Now, the display for this laptop, it's not a VRR display. It is a 120 Hz display, but it's not VRR, so it isn't the best experience with an unlimited frame rate. So I would say cap the frame rate to 60 FPS, and it should be okay. Or you could try DLSS and go for 120 FPS output. It is GPU bound, so DLSS will be fine. I mean, that RTX 3060 is a fairly beefy one for the laptops. It is a 130 watt TDP, and it's running pretty close to that, 120 odd watts here. This cutscene is pretty tough for it to run with the 3 characters. Again, the hair, the detail on the character models is excellent. It does have the enhanced character models for the PS5, so I like showing this cutscene because, again, you can see the frame rate is getting into the 60s, still above 60 FPS. But yeah, other than that, this is a pretty reasonable. I mean, this laptop is it's classed as a budget laptop, despite it costing nearly £1,000 in the UK. It's classed as budget RTX 3060. It's not the low end. It's not an entry level because you get the 3050 and the 3050 Ti that are below that. But other than that, this is classed as a budget end. Again, 1080p. We may have the scope to go to 1440p. But I'd have to connect it to an external display. We did get this big stutter here, and that was the only place we got that big stutter. I don't know why. It's running on a USB hard drive. It is an SSD that it's running from. Maybe that was the cause of it. I don't know. But we'll go to this area and do this little shootout again. And as you can see here, the performance is nice. Again, I would say with a display like the display I have on this, the Legion 5, it is just a 120 hertz. There's no G-Sync or FreeSync. So if you've got a more expensive laptop with, with a VRR display, then you could just leave it here and let it run high. We are running on the battery and we're in maximum performance mode. It's in the red. So max performance mode here, just to give you a best case scenario. There is two. There's low power. There's quiet mode, it calls it, and there is balanced mode, which is the other setting. Again, laptops, if you want to save battery life, the 60 FPS cap will do that for you. It should have enough overhead. It basically just drops the TDP of the CPU and the GPU, the power modes, to lower down. But we've let the GPU go at full power just to let you see it. It is, again, mostly GPU bound. And that Ryzen 7 5800H, it has 8 cores and 16 threads. There's not a lot for the CPU to do. Again, it's not an open world. We went for Madagascar because it is quite an open area, this kind of area. And bear in mind, there is no loading screens in Uncharted apart from the initial one that you load up. So if you played through the game from start to finish, like God of War 2018 on the PC, you wouldn't see a loading screen. So there is CPU areas where so maybe that stutter was caused by the CPU. It wasn't caused on anything else. It only appeared once in the testing, so there's really nothing to it. And again, you can see here once all the enemies are dead here, we're getting an FPS that's in the 90s there. There's a shotgun there, but yeah. Other than that, we'll climb up this tower again, just to show the platforming. There's not a lot that goes on with the platforming, to be honest. It's pretty straightforward. This game, it's not as CPU heavy as something like Spider-Man, because again, no ray tracing and no open world. But it is pushing, at least it's pushing that GPU to the limit. The CPU usage isn't that heavy on the CPU, to be honest, although the temperature is getting laptop inferno level temperature on the CPU. The fans are quite noisy. This the high power mode just turns the fans up full. I mean, you could probably get away with running it on the lower power mode, I would say, with this hardware configuration. Because I mean, there it is. It's up above. We're in this indoor area here, and you're getting frame rate into the hundreds now. Because this part is just not as taxing. But yeah, other than that, 1080p. We probably could do 1440p. We've got enough VRAM left over in the 3060, but I don't have a 1440p display, unfortunately. I could have connected it to an external display to try 1440, but I'd say we probably could do that. So I would recommend for this level of hardware a 60 FPS frame rate cap, unless again you've got a VRR display. But other than that, there's nothing really much to it. So let's go and check out the most interesting part of this, the Steam Deck then. Okay, so we're moving on to the Steam Deck, and we do get long loading times, plus a lot of texture pop-in. It takes a long time for the textures to load. The problem with Uncharted 4 on the Steam, or Uncharted, the Legacy of Thieves collection, should more accurately point out, is that it has a huge install size. It's 124 gigabytes, so I didn't have enough space to put it on the Steam Deck's internal SSD. So we are running from an SD card here. So again, this is 720p and medium settings. Everything's set to medium. The enhanced character models, they are set to standard. So we're using the PS4 character models and not the PS5 ones. We're using the game's 30 FPS. The in-game 30 FPS cap is being used here. I wouldn't recommend it, to be honest with you. The frame time is all over the place. It's still 33 milliseconds, but it's not a flat line. Use the Steam Deck's 30 FPS cap. That's what I would recommend there. And you should get a smoother frame time. There are going to be issues with this. There is going to be pop-in. I'd recommend installing it to the internal SSD on the Steam Deck. If you've got the 512 gig one, then that would be better. But I only have the 256 gig one. If you've got the 64 gig one, you're out of luck. Because again, it is bigger than 64 gigabytes, which is a shame. It's a shame that it does install the full PC version. There's also shader compilation needs to be done here, which is a bit weird. I don't know why they can't pre-compile the shaders. I mean, it is deck verified. I mean, I know there's 3 models of Steam Deck, but all 3 models of the Steam Deck are the same. So I don't know why they can't have a pre-compiled shaders. It does take a while, and your Steam Deck does get very hot and very loud. You can see we thought the laptop was inferno on the CPU. We're in the 80s here on the CPU and the GPU. Again, it is more GPU bound than CPU bound here. But yeah, 30 FPS, you can really feel the difference between that and 60. But you got to bear in mind, this is a handheld. It is a handheld system that's running, a PS4 game, and quite a graphically demanding PS4 game. All of the Sony games that have come to Steam have been deck verified, which is quite good. It's good to see. Spider-Man was deck verified. I think Spider-Man did a bit better than this on the PC, despite its open world. But yeah, I mean, you do have trouble shooting things with the 30 FPS cap. The screen is actually pretty good. It looks pretty good on the deck screen. I mean, it won't look good if you're watching this on a bigger screen like I am. I'm watching this on a 27-inch monitor. The playback here. So it doesn't look great for me, but on a 7-inch, 720p Steam Deck display, I do have to play it on a little 15-inch portable display, because when I'm using the capture card for the Steam Deck, it won't display it on the Steam Deck's screen. You have to display it on an external monitor. So I use a little portable 15-inch 1080p monitor. But the game is running at 720p resolution. Again, everything is medium. It did default to like 240p as the rendering resolution, but I've set it back to 720p. Again, I don't know why you'd want that lower rendering resolution. There was no FSR on. This is native 720p. FSR is off. What we're going to do is we will take a look at it with FSR on, and what we'll do is we'll see if we can get 40 FPS. Because the Steam Deck does have a 40 Hz mode. You can change the screen's refresh rate to 40 Hz, and you can change the frame rate to 40 FPS. So it's better than 30 FPS. Again, it has a lower frame time. Again, it's 25 milliseconds as opposed to 33.3. So what we'll do is we'll check that out and see if we can't get 40 FPS. Okay, so what I've done is I have changed the frame rate limit on the Steam Deck to 60 FPS, and we can't have the 40 FPS because it is using an external display, so it's not the Steam Deck's display. So running at 720p, we'll go with FSR quality, which is 480p, the rendered resolution there. And we've left VSync on here. Again, we're using the lock frame rate to 30 FPS. We'll turn that off. I'd say we'll turn VSync off as well. So we're going with unlimited frame rate here, with no frame rate cap. We're just trying to see if we can get 40 FPS. I can't set it to 40 Hz, unfortunately. We'd have to record off the screen in order to set it to 40 FPS. So we'll get back into game, and I'll skip the loading screens so that we don't get anything. Okay, so I've skipped the lengthy loading screens, and this is with the unlimited frame rate now. We are inferno temperatures, and as you can see, it kind of sticks to the 40 FPS, but as soon as we start driving, we do get dips below this. We're using 720p, same settings, but we've got FSR quality mode on. So it is got like a 480p rendering resolution now, upscaling up to 720p, and it just doesn't quite get there. You would have to lower, I'm guessing, lower the resolution further, because it is mostly GPU bound. But yeah, if you want an unstable frame rate, then it's not too bad. Again, we can't lock the frame rate to 40 FPS, unfortunately, because we'd have to shoot off screen to do that. But yeah, it spends quite a bit of the time in the 40s there. Maybe in the lighter sequences, it would be better at 40 FPS. I mean, this is a 60 hertz display that we're running. There's a big stutter there as we went over that little jump there. But yeah, other than that, I don't think it's really going to be possible to maintain 40 FPS here. We'll get to this cutscene. This is a pretty taxing scene here. You can see here with the explosion, with the smoke effects, and you can see it's not doing too badly. We don't have the enhanced models, enhanced character models on. And it does not too bad, in this sequence. There's not a lot going on here, but it's not great. We'll see how it does when we get into combat, because that's going to be the most important part of the game. The exploration, you could maybe get away with it, but it's into the 60s now with the 60 FPS cap for that little scene. It's not very taxing, that scene. But you can see as soon as we come back to the 3 characters on screen, it's down to 40. I mean, maybe doable. But yeah, as soon as we start getting to gameplay, though, we're back to the low 30s. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend going below quality mode in FSR. You could try balanced maybe, but when there's not a lot going on, we're back at we're back in the mid 30s now. So yeah, it's not great for gameplay, I would say, the 40 FPS cap. You could maybe drop the settings to low, but then I don't like low settings, because low settings, we got an achievement there. Samuel helping us out there. Big Sam, our brother, helped us out there. We beat that guy up there. But yeah, so not great. Yeah, I don't like the way the grass looks, really poor with FSR on there, because it is rendering at quite a low resolution. FSR was really designed for higher resolutions to scale up, because there's just there's just not enough data. I mean, it's close, but it's not a locked. So if you can put up with frame rate drops, then maybe the 40 FPS. But I would say no. I would rather have the smoother 30 FPS. Well, the smoothest 30 FPS can be. But it is smoother if you're running the same, a consistent frame rate rather than this. It is getting inferno hot as well. You got to bear that in mind. The fan is quite loud on the deck when it gets up. I haven't done anything to the fan curves. I've just left them as default on the deck, in case you're wondering. But yeah, it's getting pretty hot now. We're almost touching the 90s. In fact, the CPU did hit 92 when we were compiling the shaders. That little AMD Zen 2 CPU. And we've got the Van Gogh GPU there. It's in the 80s as well. So it is inferno hot. The 30 FPS cap does make it run a bit cooler as well. And it will improve battery life as well. Because again, the rendering is, it's lessening the load on everything. So there's not really much benefit to running the 40 FPS mode. Again, the platforming is fairly standard in Uncharted. But other than that, Uncharted 4 is a decent PC port, I would say. It doesn't take advantage of a lot of modern rendering techniques. It's got DLSS on the NVIDIA side. It does have FSR as well. And it is deck compatible. It is listed as Steam Deck verified, and it runs okay on the Steam Deck. The laptop performance was pretty good. Again, I would say if you don't have a VRR display, cap it at 60. The Steam Deck, I would recommend the 30 FPS cap, because it's, this mode really isn't great. I mean, in the indoor areas, we're getting 60, but it's not great. The frame rate is wild and unstable. And again, the Steam Deck does not have a VRR display, so it can't take advantage of that. So I would cap the frame rate at 30 on the deck, 60 on the laptop, and the PC we could just let run because I have a VRR display. Again, dependent on the VRR display. If you don't, then cap it to the display's refresh. It should be okay. Whatever your display's refresh rate is. But there you go. So that is all for this video. So thank you for joining me. We'll see you again soon, and goodbye.